Good evening, guys. Welcome to one more live. Renee's giving me a hold button. We're going live on Facebook and YouTube as well. Hope you guys had a good day. It's been a long day over here at the ranch, but I'm excited that we are here together. Every Thursday, 8:30 p.m., you and me creating abundant marriages together, because this is what it's all about, right? Taking mediocre marriages and making it into abundant marriage. And the secret to that is to be intentional, which is why every conversation that we have here Thursdays at 8:30 p.m., it's one day a week so that you have an accountability, so that you have a reminder, so that you can get these practical tools, apply it to your marriage, and you let me know the differences you see. The Bible, declares that we will reap what we sow. And so if you sow with intentionality, if you sow seeds of abundance, you will reap abundance in your marriage. So right now, use this opportunity as we start to figure ourselves out. I don't know if you're in bed right now. I don't know if you're at the dinner table. Wherever you find yourself, welcome. And make sure you have your friends and family join us, right? Please do me that favor. Start sharing with your family, your friends, share it on your social medias so that we can create a larger family here at Abundant Marriage. I do appreciate how much more interactive you guys have been. I loved getting questions, especially from the men, not women. You keep sending your questions, but I love when the men are asking questions, because it's exciting to me that there are husbands out there wanting to do their part as well in the marriage. Usually, the guys get a bad rap and, they don't care, and it's always the wives. And no, not the guys here at Abundant Marriage. And so, as I mentioned earlier this week, one of the questions that I had was, listen, Amanda, I want to be more emotionally available. I want to be more emotionally intimate with my wife. I just don't know how. She gives me a hard time and she wants me to talk about my feelings and the this and that. Can you help me out? Can you show me ways I could do this? And so I figured this would almost be like a two-part video. You don't have to necessarily watch them together, but this one I really wanted to help this husband. So if you're there, hello, and you see, look, I'm not going to call him out. I'm not going to say who it is, so you know that you have confidentiality when you ask the questions. And so I figured 6 conversations, husband, that you will be able to have with your wife, or wife with your husband, that will strengthen your relationship, and it will create emotional intimacy in your relationship. Well, Amanda, what is emotional intimacy? Well, it's the ability to talk about fears and dreams, your emotions, your traumas. It's the ability to look back in history and share about, childhood dreams or childhood traumas. And part of this conversation is also being able to be open with yourself, thinking about your thinking, and sort of a self-discovery, which I'll do another video for that, to help you get to better know yourself. Again, because usually when our spouses start to ask us questions, we think, wait, I never thought about that. Or wait, no one ever asked me that question. Or growing up in my family, these aren't the type of conversations that we'd have. And so you're like deer caught in headlights. But today, we are going to wrestle with these 6 conversations that will strengthen your marriage. And I have seen that these conversations are taking place in those marriages that are abundant. And so maybe you might have some of these conversations, and maybe you might think, hey, that's an awesome one to add. So as always, grab your papers, grab your pens, because you're going to want to write this down. Maybe you can even buy an abundant marriage journal where you can write these notes, and you can look back during the week and challenge yourself to apply what you learned during the live, during the week. And so first things first, before you can engage in these conversations, you want to do 2 things. First, you want to make time to have these conversations. There was a study that showed the importance of quality and quantity time with your partner. Here's why. There's no way you're going to have quality time if you don't have quantity time. So make yourself available. Make time for your spouse. Make this top of the priority. And so what happens is, if we are not intentional, if there are no actions behind our words, then it's not really going to matter. Don't say, I would love to have this conversation. Make time through action steps to be intentional about these conversations. And then the next thing you're going to want to do, you're going to want to commit to opening up. During the Abundant Marriage course, I had a wife and husband, and they were doing the cardboard dreams. The cardboard dreams, right now, that video is actually on the Instagram right now. So if you haven't watched that, take a look. It's on the IGTV. And it's an incredible activity that helps you and your spouse get to know each other better and, well, dream big dreams together. And so they were doing this activity, and the wife was so frustrated. She goes, Amanda, I was dreaming big dreams, and I did what I was supposed to do, and I asked my husband, well, what are your dreams? And he says, I have none. She's like, what do you mean you don't have any? And so she kept pushing and pushing and prying, and he goes, I don't know, I just don't have any. But because of her patience, right? Because of her patience, slowly he started to become aware of a side of himself that he never really knew about. Because he was so frustrated, because some of the dreams that he had, he wasn't able to accomplish. Because of so much heartache, he said, you know what? I don't even want to dream anymore. And so when we commit to opening ourselves up, we also commit to experiencing at times some painful things of the past, of the present, that is the reason why we shut ourselves off. Or maybe it's not that you've had anything traumatic, or it's not because you've been upset or disappointed. Maybe you're a Renee. My husband, I always say that if I ask Renee a question on a Monday, around Wednesday, I usually get a response from him. He likes to marinate. He likes to think before he gives me, answers. So when I did the cardboard dreams with him, even recently, because it's something that we often do, well, because we're constantly growing and changing and trying to reach new heights. And so when I asked him, he says, let me think about that and I'll get back to you. And so I asked him, early in the morning, and then in the evening, I said, well, did you think about it? He says, oh, give me another day or so to think about. And so maybe it's going to be one of those situations, but all I need you to do is to commit to opening yourself up, to sharing your deepest fears, to talk about your life's disappointments, to talk about, the childhood stuff. Share, and commit to sharing. And here's the thing. The same way that a marriage requires physical touch, physical intimacy, it also requires emotional touch, emotional intimacies. It requires for you to allow your partner to see your inner world. And so if you watch the live where I talked about, are you vulnerable to an affair? I made sure that you created certain walls around your marriage to make sure that you weren't vulnerable to attacks from Satan. But here's the thing about walls. While you want to create at times walls for the outside world, for someone that is not your spouse to look into intimate parts of yourself, you want to make sure that those walls have windows where your spouse can get to look into. So yes, absolutely. You want a wall so that you're not talking about your wife or about your intimate life or about your sexuality with friends or coworkers at work. Absolutely. But you need to make sure that those walls have special windows that your spouse and only your spouse will get to look into. And so I know this isn't an easy task. I know you might feel uncomfortable, especially if you grew up in a family that didn't really talk about this stuff, that wasn't really great at sharing emotions, that emotions were shut down or thrown to the side. So if you start to feel uncomfortable and overwhelmed, that's okay. This is a new experience that you're having, and well, it's going to take time before you're comfortable. So if you're feeling like I'm suffocated, I don't have any space, you're on the right track, okay? And men, you typically have a harder time with this than women. Now, generally speaking, right? It's not always the case. I actually had some women during the poll that I did this week, and I said, do you struggle with emotional intimacy? I had some women saying, yes, I struggle with that also. And so this is not just a men thing, it's a women thing as well. But generally speaking, this is something that is more challenging towards the men, okay? So here we go. Let's get into 6 types of conversation that will strengthen your marriage and ultimately strengthen the emotional intimacy in your marriage. This is what we are after. Okay, now, I always like to share some researchers with you so that you can see that science is doing its job at backing up a lot of the things that I'm telling you. And so, one of the research shows that dual income family, meaning mom is making money and dad is making money, they observed the type of conversations that these marriages were having, and the majority of this marriage would have conversation based on the household chores, the daycare, the groceries, things that had to do with the upkeep of the family. Now, while these conversations are important, we're not really feeling lovey-dovey when we're having these conversations. And so here's conversation number one. It's sort of the day-to-day conversation. It's the chore conversation. Now, I understand that these conversations, they need to be had so that, family life is running smoothly. These conversations, they achieve the practical things, the everyday things. It's Renee telling me, hey, I'm getting a haircut on Wednesday. Or, hey, I'm going to the grocery stores. What do you need? These conversations we need to have. However, these conversations aren't enough. If you're only having these types of conversation, your marriage is not abundant. And this is where you're going to get in trouble in your relationship, where you're saying, hey, we're feeling disconnected. Hey, I need you to be more emotionally intimate with me. There's a distance, there's an invisible separation between us. These routine, day-to-day chore conversations, like I like to call them, they are not enough. Kyle Benson, he says this: when couples end up unintentionally devoting the majority of their time and energy to routine conversations, their emotional intimacy will begin to fade. And that makes sense, right? Nothing fiery inside of me happens when Renee tells me he's going to get a haircut, or, that I have a dentist appointment, or this and that. These are just the day-to-day conversations. Important, yes. Practical, yes. Do they need to be had? Absolutely. But they are not enough. Now, part of this routine conversation or this chore conversation, one of the biggest things that come up is sort of how chores or housework will be divided. It seems like it's these conversations that cause a little bit of chaos. And here's why. Usually, the wife feels like she's doing much more than the husband, especially if she's working and then she comes home and she has to take care of the house, she has to take care of the kids. She feels that she is doing so much more. I talked to a wife this week where she says, Amanda, I understood if I was staying at home, but we both work, so it only seems fair that both of us would, be a team and take care of the things around the house. And it was pretty incredible that she was even able to say, I understand that I have to be patient with my husband because he grew up in a household where it was very black and white, where the women did the house stuff and the men worked. And so I know that I'm going to have to be patient with him, but when he does not help me, I feel unsupported, I feel disrespected, I feel unloved, and it's growing sort of this resentment inside of me. And one of the things that she did was that we came up with together was that she was going to write a list of all the things that had to get done in the house, right? And this was going to be a chore conversation, a routine conversation, the day-to-day conversation. So she makes this list of all the chores that need to be done in the house. And then together, they come up with, okay, I can do this, well, I can do this. And they made a game plan about what was going to get done and who was going to do what. A British sociologist, her name is Anne Oakley, she actually researched and documented that men tend to overestimate the amount of household work that they do. And so this is why it was so important for this wife to write down all the things that needed to get done, the things that she was already doing, the things that he thought he was doing so much household work. But then when he put it on paper, he goes, oh man, you're right, honey. I could be helping you out so much more. So again, these conversations are important, but we cannot just have these conversations. And as the research shows, unfortunately, dual income marriages, they seem to only be having this type of conversation. We can do better, right? We can do better. So now let's go to conversation number 2. This is the conversation that I like to call the Jesus and the disciple conversation. These are friendship enhancing, friendship strengthening conversation. This is the type of conversation that couples have when they are just falling in love. You know, when you're just falling in love and you're constantly texting, you're constantly on the phone, you're trying to get to know each other. I mean, you're playing 21, the 21 question game. Do you like this? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? Where do you want to travel? You know those questions that you're asking to get to know someone? Yeah, these conversations happen in the beginning of a relationship, and this is the reason why we fall in love with each other. Why? You're not going to fall in love with someone that you don't know, that you don't get to experience, that you don't get to find out new things about them. Well, these conversations can't stop after you get married. They need to continue. This is the conversation that seems to stop when you get married, and this is the reason why a lot of couples will say, I fell out of love. Of course, because the conversations that made you fall in love all of a sudden stop after you get married. And so it would make sense that because you're no longer having these conversations, well, now what is happening? You're falling out of love. Why? Because you stop asking questions. You stop learning about each other. And surely you're going to fall out of love. But in abundant marriages, in secure marriages, in happy marriages, these couples are each other's best friend. Is your spouse your best friend? Is your husband, is your wife, are they your best friend? If they're not, you are on a slippery slope. However, if that's not the case now, don't worry. Making sure you're having friendship strengthening conversations will be the way that you can once again reignite the love you guys had for each other. Friendship conversations, these are, the funny things that you share in the day-to-day. Often, Renee and I, when we come and lay down in bed, we like to share the funny things that River and Reed did. I mean, today, pretty incredible. Proud mom moment. Reed, he's more of our daredevil child, and he did a front flip on the trampoline, and I was so proud of him. And I said, hey, Renee, these are the things hey, guess what Reed did? Look at this video. These are things that you share. And then Renee texts me, oh, at work, you have no idea what happened. Or you share the exciting news. Your very best friend. Who is your very best friend? I know that my 2 very best friends, when things happen during my day-to-day, actually with one of my good friends, my best friends today, I sent her a link. I said, hey, I'm thinking about buying this. What do you think? I share the experiences. I share what I'm trying to do in abundant marriage. I share my everyday. I share things about what River and Rita are doing. Friendship strengthening conversations is that conversation that that there's that one person that you need to say, hey, I need to share with this person. So look, being a friend is less about learning skills and more about shifting your attitude. Shift your attitude to learn everything that you can possibly learn about your wife, about your husband. Take yourself back to the good old days where you would stay up late hours under the stars to just get to know each other. Okay? And so I'm going to give you some tips. Amanda, well, how do I have these friendship strengthening conversations? What do I do? Well, first, start asking open-ended questions. Don't just ask, questions that you can get a one-word answer, a one-word response, okay? Ask open-ended questions. Share this moment together. Don't rush in the conversation. If you're married to a Renee where he takes so long to answer one question, I can ask him one question and it'll take 30 minutes of a walk down the street for him to answer that one question. Ask open-ended questions. The other thing you can do, make sure that you are intentional about sharing the good news, the good moments. If something happens at work that you're excited about, stop right there. Send a text message. This is how you are going to connect. Emotional intimacy starts off by these conversations. The other thing, make it a habit to share childhood memories. If something comes up, if you're going out to dinner and a specific food reminded you of something, share these moments in your conversations. And finally, the cardboard dream. Again, it's still on the IGTV. It's still there on Instagram. Go through that. Go through the cardboard dreams. Do that together. That will surely enhance a conversation, facilitate a conversation where you will focus on how can we become best friends. And again, it's important for me to mention that marriages that are not prioritizing this friendship talk, well, they eventually feel like there's a disconnect. They eventually start to say, well, I fell out of love. I fell out of love. If you find yourself in a situation now that you feel like, Amanda, I fell out of love. Well, first, there's a video that we've already recorded that is entitled, I Fell Out of Love, Now What? But then do this. Start having these friendship conversations because this will reignite. There are so many things about your wife. There's so many things about your husband that maybe you don't know because maybe you stopped asking. You stopped being curious. Well, go back, remind yourself why you fell in love in the first place, and then have these conversations. All right. Here's the third type of conversation. The third type of conversation, I call it the Mary Magdalene conversation. It's sort of the conversation that shouts, I've got your back. I am here for you. I'm on your team. I'm on your side. These are the conversations that we need to make sure that we're having when our partner is hurt. When your partner is hurting, how do you offer support? How do you meet their needs? Research shows that emotional and physical support from a lover enhances personal well-being, especially under stress. When you're stressed out, when you're burnt out, when you're frustrated, can you come home to a supportive spouse? Are you being that supportive spouse? Can your husband, your wife, after a long day, after a stressful day, can they come home and can they find a safe haven in you? Look at this. Research also discovered that feeling confident that you can get the support you need and want from your partner is just as important as receiving this support. So not only are you getting it, but do you know that if you ever needed it in the future that you could get it? Having this confidence, having this certainty that no matter what we go through, I know that this person is going to have my back. Oh man, this research shows will enhance your well-being. And of course, it's going to produce a more abundant marriage. There's a man I really like. His name is Wendell Furman, Dr. Wendell Furman, and he says this. Although there is some mystery about whom we fall in love with, there is less mystery in what makes for a successful, rewarding relationship. Two of the key elements. Look at what he says. He goes, listen, it's some mystery why people fall in love. However, it's not entirely a mystery as to why their relationship is successful. He goes, there are two key elements. Write this down. They are a safe haven and a secure base. What does that mean? He defines being a safe haven as your spouse knowing that they have a place for emotional and physical refuge. That when they get hurt, that they know that they can come to you to express their anger, their frustration, their sadness without being judged, without being criticized, without being condemned. Are you being your spouse's safe haven? These are the conversations that you need to have. These are the conversations that says, I have your back. And they are the Mary Magdalene conversations for this reason. When Mary Magdalene was thrown there, butt naked with only maybe a blanket covering her nakedness, she was ashamed, she was vulnerable. She was thrown at the feet of Jesus, and Jesus literally said to her, I have your back. And you know how he said it? When he literally places himself in front of her. She's vulnerable, she's ashamed, she's embarrassed. All of those men are looking at her, pointing their finger in her face, ready to stone her. And Jesus says, I got you, and I got your back, and they're going to have to get through me in order to get through you. In this moment, they created a bond. They created a relationship where this woman knew, Mary Magdalene knew for the rest of her days that in Jesus, she had a safe haven. In him, she knew that it would be the place where she could bring all of the emotions, the happiest to the scariest to the darkest emotions, because he would be her rock. he would be her support. And not only that, she knew that in him, she had a secure base. What does it mean to have a secure base? It means that we know that we will always have a home to come back to. It means that we can explore the world and explore our curiosity. It means that we could go out there and dream big dreams, knowing that the person will always be cheering us on, will always have our backs. I have lost count of how many wives have told me, Amanda, I don't have a supportive husband. I don't have a supportive wife. Whenever I come home and I share them my dreams and the things that I want to do, they think I'm crazy. They think I've lost my mind. Be a safe haven. Be a secure base so that in you, your husband, your wife will find the person that they need to be their biggest cheerleader. And listen, I get it. Well, Amanda, what if my wife is having these crazy dreams? What if my husband is having these crazy dreams? Well, if they are having crazy dreams, if they are having unrealistic dreams, and I always say you have to watch the temperament talk. You know, I am very much sanguine, which means I am out there, I dream crazy dreams, and Renee is very much phlegmatic, meaning that he's the researcher, he's the calculations kind of guy. And here's the thing, could it be that God has put you two together with different temperaments, with different personalities, so that together you can help your wife accomplish her crazy and wildest dreams? That you can help your husband, go after the thing that he always wanted to do since he was a little boy, but he's never had the courage to do it because he's never had someone in his corner. Be that person. Renee often tells me, Amanda, you dream with both feet off the ground, but I'm under you making all the calculations to make sure that you will fly and that you will fly high. Oh man, how incredible it is to have a husband who supports my wildest dreams. How incredible it is to have a safe haven and a secure base. And so, awesome. If you are a little bit more rational than your wife or than your husband, Renee is definitely more rational than I am. I'm definitely more emotional. Use then the strengths so that together you can make sure that this will be a successful vision, successful dream. Okay? And so here's the things. Look, Dr. Furman, again, he advises, look at what he advises. He advises that when you are dating, that you would not take the next step unless you've experienced something difficult together. And the reason why he says that is because right there in that difficult moment, you will find out if the person you're dating is a secure base, is a safe haven. But listen, if right now you don't feel like your spouse is a secure base, a safe haven for you, well, have this conversation. These are the I have your back conversation. These are the Mary Magdalene conversation. And do you see why this is a conversation that will strengthen your marriage? Be willing to open up. Be willing to be vulnerable. Be willing to say, hey, I haven't had your back and I want to have your back. How would that look like? Ask your spouse. How would it look like for you? What do you need from me that shouts, I'm here for you. I'm in your corner. I have your back. It's important that partners not only offer support, but also talk openly about the types of support that they need and how they will offer this support. Again, support for me might look differently than support for you, which is why these conversations you must have. You need to have these types of conversation. All right, conversation number 4 that will strengthen your marriage. These are what I like to call the love tank conversation. Remember the 5 languages of love? Let me see if I can remember them here to tell you. Gifts, physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, and quality time. Those are the 5. Well, these conversations, they're kind of like a checking in, a kind of how is your love tank? These are the conversations of affection, of appreciation. And in order to build a strong relationship, in order to build a strong marriage, you need to create an environment where your spouse feels comfortable, where they feel cared for, respected, where they feel loved. And you need to make sure that this is happening not only in big ways, but in small ways. You and I, we wait for the big holidays, for the Christmas, for the Valentine's days, for the anniversary. We don't need to wait for these big occasions to demonstrate our appreciation, our love. I had a husband, he says, oh my goodness, my wife drives me crazy with this Valentine's Day nonsense. She wants the cards and she wants the flowers and she wants the chocolate. And so I asked him, I said, well, do you give her the chocolates and the flowers and the cards during the year? He goes, no, I just do it on Valentine's Day. Well, that's why. She wouldn't be so gung-ho. She wouldn't be making such a big deal about Valentine's Day if during the year you were filling her love tank. But if the woman goes all year long without receiving, a bouquet of flowers that you can get at the red light for $5, of course, she's completely depleted. She's running on fumes. She's going to make Valentine's Day such a big thing, and you're going to always have this unrealistic expectation put on you to make, Valentine's Day this crazy thing. So it's much better for you, dear husband, I told him, if you consistently fill her love tank in small ways. That way on Valentine's Day, you don't have to, drop flower petals from a helicopter, for God's sake. So he says, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So make sure that you are capitalizing on small moments. And in these small moments, simple things like, the other day, River and Reed. Oh, Lord, River and Reed. River and Reed. Well, it was River. I will not forget that it was River because it was a very traumatic experience. River and Reed, they were taking a bath together, and sure enough, River rates to literally bath time to poop inside the tub. Okay? It was disgusting. It was traumatic. We were having a little PTSD about it. And Reed looked at him and he was like, no, right? He was just as shocked as we were. And literally, Renee and I just didn't do anything for like a solid minute. We were just in disgust, looking at each other, saying, this is our life right now, right? Cleaning poop from a tub filled with toys. And Renee looked at me and he's like, listen, I got it. I have never felt so loved in my life. And poor Renee, and with his personality, with his detail-oriented personality, I think he got like Clorox wipe, and he just sat for the next 30 minutes, Clorox wiping, washing every toy, Clorox wiping every toy, and then there's like that mat, that non-slip mat in the tub, and he cleaned he obviously did a better cleaning job than I would ever do. I would just throw everything in the garbage, set it on fire, we can't use it. But he just sat there. And so at the end of the night, I said, Renee, listen, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for doing that. It was disgusting. It was awful. And thanks for taking one for the team. Capitalize on these little moments, little things like looking at your husband saying, man, I love how great you are with the kids. Thank you for throwing the trash out. Thank you for putting the dishes away. Find moments to just appreciate, to express gratitude. We're so good at calling people out. We're so good at telling them when they haven't met our expectations. But we also need to be good at telling them when they got it right. And if we start to shift our attitude, our mindset, and create an aptitude for gratitude, no matter the worst of days, there is always something to be grateful for. A habit that I have, that Renee and I have, Renee's pretty much of a slacker on this one. He likes to just verbalize it. I'm pretty religious about it. On my sink, right where I brush my teeth and this and that, I have a little journal there, and it's my gratitude journal. And every single night, I put the date and I put what I am grateful for. And some days are really hard to find what I'm grateful for. Some days I'm just like standing there on the counter for 5 minutes trying to figure out what I'm grateful for. But over and over again, because I've made this a habit, I can find something to be grateful for much quicker. Why? Because it's a shift in mindset. It almost what's the word here? It helps your mind operate in a more positive versus a negative way. All right? So it's important that your partner knows that they are appreciated, that they are valued, that they are loved. And so please have these love tank conversations where you're saying, hey, thank you, I appreciate you, I love you. Now, imagine that your relationship looks like this. Imagine that daily you would capitalize on small, medium, and big moments of expressing your affection. So this is what you can do to facilitate these love tank conversations. Ask the question. Say something like, what makes you feel most loved by me? Do you know what makes your spouse feel most loved? There was a small video that I put this week on Instagram, on Facebook, and it was entitled this: the easiest way I've ever made Renee feel loved, or something like this. The easiest way I've ever made my husband feel loved. And the easiest way was because I asked and said, hey, what makes you feel loved? And he says, well, I like it when you have genuine interest in the things that I like to do. And in that moment, his genuine interest was Formula One. Oh, Lord have mercy. And I was like, oh, Renee, I cannot watch cars just go round and round and round and round and round. But I said, you know what, I'll give it a try. And so we sat, and there's this Netflix documentary that we watched, and it was pretty interesting because it talked about the lives of each of the Formula. So I could get behind something like that. I just didn't want to see the cars, but when it was a documentary and it was stories and it talked about relationships, I love relationships. I love stories. And so we watched it together, and that's what made him feel loved in that specific day. But you need to constantly be asking, what makes you feel most loved by me? People grow, people change. It might be different today than it will be next month. Keep asking. The other thing you can ask is, in what way can I help you feel important and loved? Meaning, how can I do it physically? How can I do it emotionally? How can I do it verbally? Ask, ask, ask. This is something that you can ask in terms of the love languages. What is your love language? But specifically, what can I do in that love language to make you feel loved? So I'll give you this example. There's a lot of wives that for them, their love language is quality time. But I can assure you that quality time for you will look different than quality time for me. There are some wives that quality time for them is snuggling up and watching a romantic movie together. I would hate to do that. I have no desire to cuddling up and watching The Notebook together with Renee, okay? But if your wife likes that, tough luck. Go watch it with her. My quality time is I want to go on a hike, or I want to go rock climbing, or I want to do something active. I want to work out together. That's quality time for me. So we need to make sure that we are asking what it looks like. All right, let's go to the next one. We got two more. How are we on time, Renee? We got two more here. 20. Look at me. We're doing good. The type 5 here is our conflict conversation. Okay, conflict conversation. I call it the Peter by the seashore conversation with Jesus, and you'll understand what I mean in a bit. We need to make sure that after disagreements, after conflict, after arguments, that we are having conversations. Why? Because we cannot do better if we do not know how we went wrong. So, I'll give you the two scenarios. Remember when Peter denies Jesus 3 times, right? And he's upset about it. He's gone fishing. And the next morning, they haven't caught anything. And Jesus is there already cooking them breakfast. Well, when Peter goes to the shore, he's upset. His head is down. He feels, man, like I just messed up in this relationship. I denied him. I betrayed him. He's never going to trust me. Well, Jesus has a conversation with him. And after this conversation, their relationship is so much better. Do not run away. Do not shy away from having conflict conversations. These conversations are important to strengthen your relationships. Abundant marriages have this conversation. Why? So that they don't keep repeating the error over and over and over again. If you don't talk about these things, I know it's uncomfortable, I know it's not fun, but if you don't talk about it, you are going to sweep it under the rug. And after you sweep enough things under rugs, well, you start tripping over the bumps on the rug. Don't do that. Be willing to have conversations. And guess what? Dr. John Gottman, he says this: within your conflicts lies the greatest opportunity for intimacy. Why? Let me explain to you why. Husband and wife, husband was watching pornography, and he goes and he tells his wife. Obviously, his wife was not happy about it. She was like, oh, wow, I'm so grateful. I'm so happy that you're watching pornography. Of course not. She cried. She was upset. However, even though in that moment she was angry and she was upset and she felt sad and betrayed and lost trust, that conflict caused them to be more intimate and closer and strengthen their relationship. You know why? Because they started having conversations that they were never having before, such as, what can I do to help you? What do you need from me? During what moments do you feel the need to watch pornography? Oh, when I'm stressed out in work with this and that. Okay, well, what can we do instead? So they started to work out together. Do you get what I'm saying? So this awful situation created a space so that they could further connect through working out, through spending time together. Conflict conversations, again, allows an opportunity, creates an opportunity for greater intimacy in your relationships, which is why it's important that you are very intentional about scheduling these conversations. Take time. Remember, in order for you to strengthen your conversation, you're going to need quality and quantity time. But quality cannot happen without quantity. So separate, a minimum, guys, come on, I'm being nice here, a minimum of like 30 minutes a week to have this type of conversation. The more, honestly, the merrier. Make sure that during the week, you're experimenting with at least 3 out of these 6 conversations. Again, let me repeat them quickly for you. So the first one is the routine conversations. You're automatically having that. You don't even need to spend more time on that. These are the chores, right? These are the to-do lists. And then you have the friendship strengthening conversation. Oh, you need to have those. These are like Jesus kicking it on the seashore or on the boat with his disciples, and they're talking and they're laughing and they're having a good time. This is you sharing the good moments. Then the support conversation, the I got your back, I'm here for you, I'm your safe haven, I'm your secure base. The love tank conversations, the how are you doing, checking in, making sure you're expressing gratitude, appreciation, affirmation, and now we are on the conflict conversation. And so it's important that we have these conversations because, well, we are sinners. We are constantly messing up. We are constantly falling short, and we need to make sure that we have conversations so that does not happen. So in order for you to engage in this conversation, first, find a time and a space that you are not distracted, okay? I do not recommend having this conversation if you have little kids and they're up and you're like playing in their room and you're trying to have this. Of course not, okay? Find a time when you guys are well rested. Find a time when you slept well. Find a time that you are both present and engaged. No technology, no phones. Before you start this conversation, it's important that you prime your mind to positivity. So share like 3 things that you're grateful for. Hey, thank you so much for doing this. Hey, I love when you this. Oh man, I love being married to you because you are just a person that is of integrity. You are honest. You are hardworking. Find 3 things that you appreciate, that you cherish, and express it. After that, think about things that already went well. Instead of focusing on all the things that went wrong, take some time first to think about all the things that went right. Man, we really killed it when you and I did X, Y, and Z. Oh man, we did such an awesome time, standing together against the comments from our in-laws towards our children, towards our parenting. Thank you so much for getting my back on that one. Find times that you really were there for each other, where the relationship went well. And then start to share the thing with, hey, what could be improved this week? What didn't go well this past week that we can improve on last week? And then you work on those improvements. But take one thing. Let's say you create a list. Okay, well, Renee, this is the list of all the things that I feel like didn't really go well this week. Well, I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I'm going to pick one of them. And then we're going to work on that. And we're going to, together as a team, come up with a solution for that. And maybe there's not even going to be a solution. Maybe it's just for me to vent and for me to just talk about how upset and how frustrated I am. Well, we get that one thing and then we talk about it. Okay, and then we try to apply it for next week. Oh, okay, I see where you're upset. I see where you were frustrated on this. Well, next week, if I do it like this, we can do it better. I'll give you this scenario. It's a funny example. So, I have this thing, okay? I like Renee's hair longer, a little longer than he would like it. Renee likes his hair a little shorter. And so we compromise with sort of this, I just like hairy. I like long beard, a good amount of hair on his head. And Renee went to get his hair cut 3 months ago. And when he came in, I just wanted to cry. His hair was, obviously he didn't think it was short. He's like, are you kidding me, Amanda? I got a hair. It's not even that bad. And I was like, Renee, I cannot wait for 3 months to go by so that your hair can grow again. This is a really silly example, okay? But I was just really upset because it took a good while for his hair to, I was so happy with this whole quarantine thing because he couldn't go get a haircut. And so I knew it was going to grow longer than he would ever let it grow. And so I was so upset about it. I was like, 3 months for your hair to grow back to the length that it was. I loved how it was longer. And so he went to go get a haircut this week, and um he came back and I didn't notice he got a haircut. And I was just like, yes, like I love that. I want him to go get a haircut and I want him to come home and I don't want to notice that he got a haircut. I know it's weird. And so I said, what did you tell the guy? And he goes, I told the guy, can you cut my hair? But can you cut it in a way that it doesn't seem like you cut it? Because my wife likes me to cut my hair, but for her to not to notice that I cut my hair. you know? And I was like, hey, I so appreciate that because last time I hated his haircut and I was upset and frustrated about it. And then this time, the next time, right, he fixed it. And so anyways, it's a silly example, but he looks great. I love his haircut, right? I didn't notice he got a haircut. It's not as long, but it's not as short. It's just right in the middle. So a silly example, but you get the point. These conflict conversations help you do better and do it right next time. Sometimes we offend the people we love most without even knowing we offended them. Okay? And make sure of this. Dr. Pat Hollinger says, whether you are the listener or the speaker, you have equal responsibility for the success of the conversation. So if you're the one listening or if you're the one speaking, make sure that you're doing it in such a way because it is dependent on you, on the both of you, for the success of that conversation. Conflict conversations, remember, these are opportunities for greater intimacy. And finally, here's the last one. We are going to land this plane. These are the sex conversations. You need to have conversations about sex. There's a video that we created. It's called 7 Tips for Better Sex. And one of the tips is talk about sex. If you're not talking about sex, you're not having good sex because you need to talk about it. Okay? Research shows that 85% of sexual challenges can be resolved by having accurate information about desire, arousal, and sex, meaning that you need to be talking about it so that your spouse knows what feels good and what doesn't feel as good. Hey, this touch here, this is good. Don't touch there. I don't like that. Long-term relationships, there's a tendency that the love making becomes very robotic. Okay, it becomes like a checklist. There is a tendency after you've been together for a very long time, especially when kids come in the mix, that you do it just as a chore. That it's kind of like, hey, we're going to bypass the foreplay, we're going to bypass the making out or the massage or the this or the romantic music, and we're just going to get it done, and that's it. And I get it. Listen, I've fallen a victim of that too. And here's the thing, the lack of time and the lack of energy that we have with the jobs and the kids and the this and the that, but we need to make sure that our partners actually feel desired, that they feel loved. I know that that's something that I really am trying to do a better job at, not getting so crazy with the schedule that I don't make Renee feel truly loved and desired. And so for that to happen, we need to make sure we're having conversations about sex. People always say, oh, well, what's the right amount of sex per week? There's no right amount. Have a conversation. If 3 times a week works for you, great. If 5 times a week, great. If 1 time a week, great. Make sure you're having the conversation, but also make sure that there is foreplay, that there is intimacy. Make sure, honestly, sometimes that you are just making out like a bunch of teenagers in the back of a car. Make sure that that is happening. From Fighting for Your Marriage, this book, it says this: there needs to be a place for romance and for sexual talking and touching in your relationship, both in and outside the context of making love. During the act of sex isn't the only place where you can make out, where you can give each other a massage, where you can just hold hands, where you can cuddle. So have these conversations. These are some helpful tips. Look at this. This was a good one that I found. Kyle Benson suggested this one. Create a map. Create a map of your body and point out all the spots that you like to be touched and all the spots that maybe you don't like to be touched. And together explore those areas. Another one, passionately kiss your partner at random times without it becoming sexual. Whether, a lot of people are working from home, just, bust in through the door, bust in through the office, and just make out with each other without it being sexual. There needs to be more making out. Guess what? Because this gets you excited, and who knows if that will be a kiss with potential. And another thing, spend some time asking each other, hey, what are the things that turn you on? What are the things that you don't like? You know, Renee knows that something that turns me on is a backwards hat. It's something so simple. It's something so silly. But have these light conversations, right? Look, he just put his backwards hat. He just put his hat on backwards. Oh, I think he's trying to send me a subliminal messages. So look, how about this, Renee? We're going to end it early, 9 minutes early, because who knows if you'll get lucky today. But listen, guys, share this video. I hope it was helpful to you. Husband, I hope that these 6 conversations will strengthen your relationship, that it will create more intimacy. And guess what? If you initiate these conversations with your wife, surely she will say, hey, he still needs some work. He's still a little rough around the edges, but just make an effort. There's research that literally shows that when husbands make an effort to have these conversations about feelings and emotion, about intimacy, even though their wife knows that they're uncomfortable, this makes her feel so secure, so happy, so loved, so appreciated. Why? Simply because you are trying. So guys, let's capitalize on the small moments. Let's make sure we're having a variety of conversations. Kind of like food, right? If you ate the same food every single day, well, it'd get really boring. You don't eat the same food every single day, right? And so, well, you're not going to have the same conversation every single day. Do not just be having chore conversation, routine conversations. Please sprinkle spices. Have different conversations so that you can create greater intimacy and strengthen your marriage towards an abundant marriage. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. If you have any questions, any concerns, any comments, please send me a DM, message me on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you will find me. I am available to you. See you guys next week, Thursday, 8:30.